Snow drifts across a field torn by shellfire. Smoke curls from the blackened remains of a burned-out tank. Men move through the haze, silent silhouettes with hollow eyes. A whistle cuts through the wind, and a line of penal soldiers, mud-stained, ragged, and chained at the wrists, trudges toward the front. At their head walks Alexei Voronin. His uniform is stripped of insignia, but his back is still straight, his gaze sharp and defiant. A scar runs down his temple, a reminder of a battle he'd once led, and lost. The escorting officer, young and nervous, avoids his eyes. Everyone knows who Voronin was. Alexei glances across the ranks. Faces of thieves, deserters, and drunkards. Men who have already been condemned to die. But beneath the grime, he sees something else: fear, anger, and the faint glimmer of the soldiers they once were. A sudden explosion rips through the silence. The earth jumps. Dirt rains down. The penal troops drop flat, instinct taking over. Alexei doesn't move, he just watches the black smoke roll upward, then turns slowly toward the lieutenant. "Is this our welcome?" he asks quietly. The lieutenant doesn't answer, he just points ahead, toward a line of trenches barely visible through the fog. A voice from a megaphone shouts orders over the chaos: "Strafniki! Forward! You clear the mines!" Alexei looks at the frozen ground stretching before them. No one moves. The fear in the men's eyes thickens the air. Then Alexei steps forward. "One step or a bullet," says a guard behind him. Alexei turns his head slightly, eyes calm. "Save your bullet," he says. "You'll need it later." He takes another step, and another. The men behind him follow, slow at first, then faster, not out of courage, but because something in his voice makes them believe, for a heartbeat, that death isn't the end. As they advance, the wind howls across the field. Somewhere far off, artillery thunders. Snow and ash swirl together, erasing the horizon. The penal battalion moves into the fog, nameless, doomed, but marching under the silent command of a man who has already lost everything except his will to fight. Mud clings to Alexei's boots as he crawls through the half-frozen trench. The air stinks of cordite and rot. Somewhere above, machine guns chatter in uneven bursts, cutting through the morning mist like grinding metal. The penal battalion huddles in the dugout, faces gray, hands trembling around battered rifles. Sergeant Makarov sits beside him, rolling a cigarette with shaking fingers. His face is smeared with soot, his eyes red from smoke and sleepless nights. "They'll send us again at dawn," he mutters. "They always do. We go first, they follow after the smoke clears." Alexei doesn't answer. He's watching a tattered map pinned to the mud wall, lit by the flicker of a single candle. The ink has bled from moisture, but the positions are clear enough. Enemy lines less than 2 kilometers ahead. Minefields. Artillery nests. Certain death. A young soldier, barely 20, stares at Alexei with a mix of awe and fear. "Captain," he whispers, then corrects himself, "Comrade Voronin, why do you still fight? You could have stayed back, said you were wounded." Alexei looks up slowly. "Because I was an officer," he says. "And officers don't hide behind men like you." His voice is calm, but heavy, the weight of memory pressing behind every word. Outside, a flare lights up the sky, turning the trench walls blood red. The distant sound of shouting echoes through the cold air. Orders are coming down the line. Another attack. Another suicide run. Makarov curses under his breath and slaps his rifle's bolt into place. "Guess it's time again," he says, forcing a bitter grin. "They'll remember us for 5 minutes, if that." Alexei stands, pulling his torn greatcoat tighter around his shoulders. "Then we make those 5 minutes count." He steps toward the ladder, snow beginning to fall again in lazy flakes that melt on his face. "On your feet," he says quietly. The men rise. No speeches, no promises. Just a shared silence, the kind that binds the doomed together. As Alexei climbs from the trench, the world explodes into sound, artillery roaring, bullets slicing the air. He moves forward into the storm, each step heavy with defiance. Behind him, the penal battalion surges after their leader, their shouts swallowed by the thunder of war. For the first time in days, they aren't running from death. They're running towards something greater, the faint, flickering shadow of redemption. The night has swallowed the battlefield whole. Only the dull glow of burning wreckage marks the line between earth and sky. Smoke drifts low, thick as fog, carrying with it the stench of oil and blood. Alexei moves through the ruins with a small group of survivors, no more than 10 men now, the remnants of what once was a battalion. They move in silence, ghosts among the dead. Every crunch of frost underfoot feels like a scream. Their mission is nearly done. Destroy the German artillery battery that has been hammering the Soviet front for 3 days straight. The objective lies ahead, a cluster of camouflaged guns on a hill, surrounded by barbed wire and guarded by spotlights that sweep the darkness like searching eyes. Makarov kneels beside Alexei, breath steaming in the cold. "We're out of grenades," he whispers. "Half the men don't have rifles that work." Alexei checks his watch, cracked glass, stopped hands. "We don't need time," he mutters. "We just need the noise." He studies the enemy position. Every flash of light from the guns marks a chance, a rhythm to their destruction. He gestures for the men to spread out. They move like shadows, slipping between craters and corpses. One man trips a wire. Alexei freezes, waiting for the explosion that never comes. The wire is dead, a miracle, or a trap that's already been sprung. The first German spotlight swings too close. Alexei grabs his submachine gun and fires in a short, controlled burst. The operator falls, the light dies, and darkness returns like a blessing. The others follow suit, attacking from the flanks with raw fury. The hill erupts. Gunfire, shouting, explosions, chaos tearing through the frozen night. Alexei charges forward through the smoke, tossing a stolen grenade into the nearest artillery pit. The blast throws him to the ground, ears ringing, snow and dirt raining over him. When he rises, the guns are silent. The few Germans left alive are fleeing into the forest. The penal soldiers stand scattered among the flames, panting, bleeding, but victorious. Then comes the whistle, high, sharp, unmistakable. German reinforcements, trucks, engines roaring in the distance. Alexei looks at Makarov. "Get them out," he says. Makarov stares back, shaking his head. "Not without you. You have men to lead. Go." Before Makarov can argue, Alexei turns and runs toward the sound of the engines, reloading as he moves. He takes cover behind a shattered gun carriage and opens fire, holding them off alone while his men retreat down the hill. The flashes of his weapon light his face, calm, determined, almost serene. A shell lands nearby. The world becomes white light and thunder. When the smoke clears, Alexei lies among the ruins, motionless but still clutching his weapon. The artillery battery burns behind him, a roaring inferno lighting up the snow. Far below, Makarov looks back once, just once, and sees his commander silhouetted in the flames, a lone soldier standing against the darkness. Then the wind shifts, and the fire swallows the hill. A cold wind cuts across the barren plain. Dawn creeps slowly over the horizon, washing the wreckage in pale light. The battle is over, but the land still groans, smoke rising from shattered guns, bodies half buried in snow. The silence is heavy, broken only by the distant crack of retreating artillery. Alexei wakes to the sound of boots crunching nearby. His ears still ring from the explosion, everything feels far away, muffled. He tries to move, but pain stabs through his ribs. His weapon lies a few feet from him, frozen into the ground by a thin crust of ice. German voices approach, sharp, efficient. 2 soldiers search the dead, stripping them of watches, cigarettes, anything of value. One stops when he sees Alexei's hand twitch. "Let!" the soldier shouts. They drag him up roughly, yanking away his rifle. His vision swims, faces blur, the world narrowing to flashes of gray and red. He's shoved forward toward a small cluster of officers standing beside a half-track vehicle. The man in the center is tall, immaculate even in the chaos, Colonel Reinhardt, his expression calm, eyes like polished glass. "So," Reinhardt says in accented Russian, "this is the man who destroyed my guns." He studies Alexei like a specimen. "You should be proud. You cost me 200 men and 6 artillery pieces." Alexei spits blood into the snow. "Not enough," he rasps. The colonel's lips tighten. He signals to the soldiers, who force Alexei to his knees. "You're not an ordinary soldier," Reinhardt says. "They tell me you were once an officer. Perhaps you still think like one." He steps closer, his shadow falling over Alexei. "I can use a man like you. Information, positions, codes, give me something, and I'll make sure you live. Food, warmth, a bed." Alexei looks up, meeting his eyes. For a moment, the world is silent again, no wind, no shouting, just the low hum of engines. His breath fogs in the air between them. "Live," Alexei says slowly. "You call this living?" Reinhardt tilts his head. "Better than dying for nothing." Alexei's lips curve in a faint smile, cracked and bloody. A soldier dies standing. The colonel studies him for a moment, something almost like respect flickering in his gaze. Then he gives a short nod. The guards drag Alexei away toward the camp trucks. As he's hauled past the ruins, he turns his head slightly. The hill still burns, the last of the flames devouring the shattered guns. The snow around them glows red in the dawn light. Alexei breathes in the smoke, closes his eyes for a second, and straightens his back despite the pain. Chains rattle around his wrists, but his posture is still that of a commander. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the war grinds on, indifferent, endless, but for this one man, the fight has only changed shape. He isn't done. Not yet. The prisoner convoy crawls through the forest, engines growling low in the bitter cold. Snow falls steadily, soft flakes settling on helmets and tarpaulins. The men in the trucks are silent, a line of captured soldiers huddled together under torn blankets, their faces hollow with exhaustion. Alexei sits among them, hands bound, a bruised bandage wrapped around his shoulder. Every bump in the road sends a spike of pain through his body, but his gaze never wavers from the trees sliding past outside the slats of the truck. His mind is already working, counting guards, memorizing terrain, watching for weak points. Opposite him, a gaunt prisoner coughs weakly, whispering in Polish. "Where are they taking us?" Alexei answers without looking up. "To work until we die." He pauses, then adds quietly, "Unless we choose otherwise." The man frowns, not understanding. Alexei just nods toward the rear of the truck, where two German soldiers sit with rifles across their laps, half dozing. Freedom doesn't come when it's given. It comes when someone takes it. The convoy halts suddenly, shouting outside, an officer barking orders. Through the slats, Alexei sees smoke rising ahead on the road, faint flashes of movement in the trees. He senses it before he hears it, the distant crack of a rifle, then another. Ambush. Chaos erupts. Gunfire bursts from the forest. The lead truck explodes in a column of fire. The prisoners duck instinctively as bullets punch through the sides of their vehicle. The guards leap out, shouting, returning fire. Alexei moves. He throws his weight sideways, slamming into one of the guards. The man falls, his rifle skittering across the floorboards. Alexei grabs it, swinging the stock into the second guard's jaw with a sharp, brutal crack. "Move," he shouts, his voice cutting through the din. Out. The prisoners surge forward, bursting from the truck into the open. Smoke fills the clearing. The attackers are partisans, ragged but fierce, emerging from the woods like phantoms. One of them, a woman with a rifle slung over her back, locks eyes with Alexei. Recognition flashes there. "You're Soviet," she calls in Russian. Alexei nods, ducking as a bullet snaps past his ear. "Was," he replies grimly. The firefight is short and vicious. When it ends, the convoy lies in ruins, the surviving Germans fleeing into the trees. The partisans quickly gather weapons, food, whatever supplies they can salvage. The woman approaches Alexei. "We thought you were dead," she says. "The Red Army reported your unit destroyed." He wipes the blood from his mouth, looks at the rising smoke, then at the scattered survivors, men who were prisoners a few minutes ago and now stand free, shaking, uncertain. "Maybe I am," he says quietly. "But the dead can still fight." She studies him for a moment, then hands him a rifle. "Then fight with us." Alexei takes it without hesitation. The wood feels familiar in his hands, heavy, alive. He looks once more toward the distant horizon, east, where the front line still rages, and nods. The forest closes around them as they disappear into the snow, leaving behind the burning convoy and the faint echo of marching footsteps, the beginning of a new war fought in the shadows.